Have you ever felt like you're not alone, even when you're by yourself? Like something unseen is watching, waiting? Today, we're about to share stories that will make you question what's really out there. These are not just tales, they are chilling experiences people have actually lived through. So, get comfortable, turn off the lights, and listen closely, because what you're about to hear might just stay with you forever. Listen closely. This is a story about a man who thought he lived alone. But the truth? It's far more disturbing than he ever imagined. You might want to leave a light on. In 2015, I was visiting my mom and staying overnight. She lives in a private house, with rooms arranged one after another, and I was sleeping in the room farthest from the entrance. The house itself is inside a courtyard, and without opening the tall gates, it's pretty difficult to get in. In the middle of the night, I woke up to someone knocking on the front door. Still half asleep, I figured it must be someone familiar, since they had gotten into the courtyard, so I got up to open it. As I passed through the room between mine and my mom's bedroom, the knocking grew more insistent. I could already hear my mom's voice behind the door, but there was something strange in her tone, something uncharacteristically whiny. "Yulia, come on, open up." To give some context, the house was in total darkness. The shutters were closed. If you've ever stayed in an old-style house like that, you'll know that with shutters closed, you can create complete pitch blackness even in the middle of the day. I passed through my mom's bedroom, just a few meters away from the front door, only the kitchen left to cross, when I suddenly heard my mom's voice from her bed, "Don't open the door. I'm right here." That's not me. I don't know what that is. The knocking stopped immediately after that. Half asleep, I didn't even feel scared, I just turned around and went back to bed. In the morning, my mom told me that she too had woken up later that night from knocking on the door, but this time it was my voice behind the door, pleading for her to open it. She decided to check if I was still in bed, and of course, I was, so she didn't open the door to whoever or whatever that was. By lunchtime, the story took an even stranger turn. My husband called. He had stayed home, 600 kilometers away, and he's the type who doesn't believe in dreams or anything superstitious, and asked, "Are you all okay over there?" I asked why he was asking that. He hesitated for a bit, probably gathering his courage so he wouldn't sound superstitious, and then he said, "I kept having the same dream over and over all night. Something big was walking around your mom's house, trying to get in, pulling at the door. What that was, I don't know. But I've since read that if something like that happens, you should never open the door, or you'll let trouble into your home." Imagine being home alone, and waking up in the middle of the night to hear a deep male voice. But it's not coming from outside, it's coming from your cat. And what if that voice belonged to someone who's no longer alive? This next story will stay with you long after the lights go out. Last autumn, my friend's husband took his own life. Olesya couldn't stay alone in the house anymore, so she moved into an apartment. She only stopped by the house after work to feed the cat and check on things. Eventually, she got tired of going back and forth, and in late December, she brought the cat to live with her in the apartment. On the very first night, Olesya nearly died of fear. At 2 a.m., she woke up to the sound of someone growling in a terrifying, deep male voice. "Open." Olesya turned on the light, grabbed a stool, and got ready to hit what she thought was an intruder. But then she saw the cat. It was sitting by the door, staring at her with wide eyes, and repeated in the same male voice. "Open." Olesya's legs gave out beneath her. She recognized the voice. It was her late husband's. She began reading prayers out loud. The cat thumped its tail on the floor at first, then calmed down, walked away from the door, and laid down in its usual spot. Olesya didn't sleep a wink for the rest of the night. That cat had been her husband's favorite. He doted on it, fed it by hand. When he was resting, the cat often laid on his stomach. Yesterday, Olesya told me that the cat had said something new. Again, in the middle of the night, using that same deep male voice, it screamed. "Come on." In frustration, Olesia said she'd send the cat to a shelter. She just couldn't take those terrifying screams in the middle of the night. "You know," she told me, "I wake up from those cries and feel my heart seize. Then I realize, it's my husband, trying to talk through the cat. I get angry. I say, don't come, the dead to the dead, the living to the living." Normally, the cat's voice is soft and barely audible. But when this happens, she screams so terrifyingly. She looks at me, her fur standing on end, eyes wide like saucers. My legs go weak and the hair on my head stands up. I can only save myself by praying. I just wish I knew what he wants from me. He wasn't a man of many words in life, now he's trying to say something through the cat. I wish I knew what. Sometimes, what haunts us in our dreams, doesn't end when we wake up. Because what would you do if a child with no eyes appeared next to your bed, not in a dream, but in the silence of the night? Ready for the next story? If I'm to tell this in order, it all started in February 2018. My husband and I were renting an apartment in a typical 9-story building. The previous tenants were elderly, very religious, icons everywhere, prayer books. At first, everything seemed normal. My husband would leave early for work, and I stayed home since I wasn't working at the time. He'd usually return around 8 or 9 p.m., sometimes later. It gets dark early in February. I didn't notice anything strange at first. A few times I thought I saw something small and black out of the corner of my eye, like little shadow figures darting by. I told my husband, and he, of course, tried to convince me I was imagining things. But eventually, he reluctantly admitted that whenever I stayed overnight at my relatives', he felt uneasy, like he wasn't alone in the apartment. A few days later, my husband left on a business trip. Everything was normal until about a week after he left. I was sleeping on my side, with my left arm stretched out and resting on the back of the bed and on the armrest of a chair next to the headboard. I was half asleep when I heard and felt someone walking from the kitchen toward the room. The closer the footsteps got, the louder they became, so loud it felt like a freight train was passing through my head. I heard them in my skull. I could even see what was happening in my mind. I woke up, but couldn't move. That deafening noise was still in my head. And then it came. Something walked up to my bed. Judging by the steps, I thought it was a stone giant. But instead, it looked like a 5-year-old child, same height and body. But with pitch-black voids where the eyes should be. I just lay there, mouth open. Then it sat down on the chair and took my hand in its own, stroking it gently. I still couldn't move, only my eyes were free, and I thought, is this real? Am I dreaming? And then, the genius idea hit me, I'll pinch it. As if that's just something I do every day. So I pinched it, and it bit me on the hand. I jerked my hand away, and suddenly I could move again. I turned over, and it darted back toward the kitchen. I shot up and sat on the edge of the bed. That's when the fear hit me, I was shaking all over. I turned on the TV, then got angry and started muttering, "What the hell is this? What do you want from me?" I walked into the kitchen, looked under the table, checked all the lower cabinets on my knees. Then checked the bathroom, the storage closet. No one. Furious, I went back to bed. The next day I called my husband and told him what had happened. He said maybe I dreamed it, but I could tell by his voice, he believed me. Just didn't want to admit it. About 2 months later, I had another dream. In it, I begged a woman I didn't know, who was going to church, to buy me a small icon of Christ on the cross. I was crying, pleading. She asked why I needed it, and I said, "I'm tired of this evil, it won't leave me alone." She promised to get it and walked away. I even saw the icon in my dream. When I woke up, I went to a church and told them the dream. But they said no such icon existed at that time, and some people didn't even understand what I meant. The icon looked like a crucifix with only Christ on it, no apostles around him. Later in the summer, we decided to see a local woman who was said to know things. She met with us one at a time in a room filled with icons. She read prayers, sprinkled holy water, and walked around me. I noticed the candle crackled when she prayed over me. Then she said, "Your husband is fine. But something is wrong with you." She said it looked like a strong curse or hex. And if it weren't for my husband, who was absorbing some of the negative energy, I might have died already. I was in shock. I asked who would do this to me. She said, "Not necessarily you, could be a family curse." She told me she'd have a dream that night revealing who was behind it. "Call me in the morning," she said. That evening my husband and I discussed it. He had his doubts but was supportive. In the morning, I called her. She said, "It's a family curse. Your great-grandmother stole your great-grandfather from another woman, and that woman cursed the bloodline for 7 generations. She said she couldn't remove it right away because of the fasting period, but after that, she could help. For now, be careful," she warned. "They're watching you." I asked who they were. "The evil ones," she said. "You've seen them before. They want to take you. But your guardian angel is strong. He won't let them." I was stunned. I didn't know what to think. We talked about it and I started remembering. There was a time I was saved from death, by a voice, just like in the story Black Cloud. A quiet, kind voice warned me, and I listened. Maybe I'll share that story in the comments, if anyone's interested. I started researching online, and the Orthodox Christian sites say you shouldn't trust these kinds of seers. They say such abilities come from demons, and visiting them is sinful. Though there are people with true gifts from God, they are rare. It's been 6 months since then. I now pray before bed. The visit stopped, but life hasn't gotten any easier. So now I wonder, what do I do next? Does anyone out there know someone who truly works with the light? Here comes the next chilling story. What if a mysterious voice saved you at the most crucial moment of your life? This next experience will make you question what's real and what's beyond. Let's dive in. It was the year 2002. I was 25 years old, had recently given birth to my son, and was juggling caring for the baby while studying externally to finish school. Final exams were approaching. Since I had little time and many subjects to cover, my teacher friends and I agreed that I would thoroughly study just one chemistry question, the first one, and they would place the ticket first on the side by the window. So I diligently memorized that one ticket. The day of the exam arrived. Let me briefly describe the exam board. 2 of my teacher friends were on it, along with the school principal. For reasons I never understood, she had always disliked me and made my life difficult during school. That day, I had 2 exams, chemistry and history, only 30 minutes apart. My plan was to quickly pass chemistry and run to the history exam. I was the first in line for chemistry. Suddenly, the principal came out and said I would go last, then ushered in a boy ahead of me. I immediately thought, what if he picks my ticket? Or if not, the order will still be disrupted. I couldn't see which ticket he took. Frustrated, I decided to protest. When the principal came out again, I told her she was obligated to let me in next due to my history exam. Reluctantly, she allowed me in. And now, the most interesting part begins. I stood before the table of tickets, wondering which one to choose. I tried to think logically. If the boy had taken my ticket, then I was out of luck. But if he hadn't, then it should still be in its original place. I thought, I'll take the risk and go for the first one by the window. But just as I reached for it, a female voice came from over my right shoulder. 4th from the left. Still, I reached toward the first ticket. The voice repeated, more insistently. 4th from the left. Guess which ticket it was? It was the first ticket, my ticket, the one I had memorized. It was the easiest, simplest question. You should have seen the principal's face. She turned green with rage. I rattled off the answer and rushed off to my history exam. That evening, I was celebrating when my friend came over and said, "Anya, you were so lucky with that chemistry ticket." I replied, "What do you mean lucky?" She told me this. Apparently, the principal suspected there would be collusion between me and the teachers. So, she took the tickets from them and locked them in a safe. On exam day, she personally laid out the tickets and never left the room. Even the teachers didn't know where my ticket was placed. I said, "Well, thank you for whispering to me." She looked puzzled and said, "I didn't whisper anything to you." And that's when it hit me, something mystical had happened. What it was or who it was, I still don't know. I've never heard that voice again. But just when you think it can't get any creepier, the next story might make you think twice before joking out loud when you're alone at home. I'm going to hang myself. This story was told by my aunt, a very down-to-earth, rational woman. She's a teacher by profession and not someone prone to mystical thinking. She was 10 years old at the time. She, her sister, and one of her sister's classmates were playing hide-and-seek at their house. Yes, in the 1960s, even 10-year-olds, and older kids too, still played hide-and-seek. There were no smartphones or gaming consoles back then. Even televisions were considered a luxury. So the classmate and her sister went off to hide, and my aunt was the seeker. The house was in the city but located in a quiet, older residential neighborhood. It was small and fairly old. She searched all the rooms, went out into the yard, checked the storage shed, even went down into the root cellar with a flashlight. No one. Just jars of pickled vegetables and the sound of mice rustling. Suddenly, she felt hurt. Were they mocking her or something? It would have been one thing if it were just her sister or a friend, but this was a high school boy. She sat down on the couch in the living room and, to her own surprise, said out loud, "If you don't come out, I'm going to hang myself." Got it? Silence. She figured they must have left the house entirely, ditched her and gone off to enjoy the summer evening together. It was vacation time, after all. The weather was nice. "All right then, I'm going to hang myself," she repeated, through tears, not really expecting anyone to hear her. "Well, why aren't you doing it?" At first, my aunt didn't realize who had spoken. Had the other two come back? Had her parents returned from visiting friends? She jumped up from the couch, ran through the rooms. No one was there. She dashed outside, looked around, circled the house quickly. No one. Not even in the garden. She sat down on the bench by the front door, staring fearfully into the windows, straining to hear any sound from inside. But it was dead quiet. No people, no demons, no ghosts. Nothing showed up in the windows. The street outside sounded normal, cars droning in the distance beyond the edge of the neighborhood, a commuter train clattering by even farther off, chickens clucking in nearby yards. She recalled the voice. It wasn't clearly male or female, not a boy's or girl's voice, just, strange, indeterminate. A fresh wave of fear washed over her. She stood up and walked away from the house. Not long after, she found her sister and the boy sitting together in the park near the local club, whispering to each other, pressed close. Still hurt, she didn't even approach them. Instead, she went to the house where her parents were visiting their friends and returned home with them. Needless to say, my aunt was terrified of being alone in the house after that, and falling asleep became a struggle for a long time, even though she shared a room with her sister. Here comes the next story, and this one might just follow you into the dark. He said your name. This happened 4 years ago. I have one very close friend, the kind of friend you've known for so long, you can practically read each other's minds. I was 28 at the time, and she was 31, though she looked younger than me. Her favorite running joke was that she didn't have a single gray hair, while about a third of my hair was already silver, so I constantly had to dye it. Anyway, 4 years ago, she bought an apartment just a 5-minute walk from mine. Twice a week she would visit her new place, slowly moving in her things, kitchenware, appliances. She was setting it all up, but she hadn't stayed overnight yet. There was still a lot that needed fixing, especially in the bathroom. Almost every time, she'd invite me over. It's boring alone, come hang out. I'd come by after work, help her move stuff, clean a little. We'd sit and chat until late, then each go home. At first, she was glowing, finally, a place of her own. After her divorce, she'd been living with her parents. Now she had her own space, away from them, and closer to me. But then, little by little, she started mentioning odd sounds in the apartment. She said it felt like something, or someone, was there. Sometimes we'd be sitting in the living room, and we'd hear what sounded like a deep sigh coming from the bedroom. Or we'd be in the kitchen having tea, and hear a noise like someone moving the couch in the living room. Sometimes she'd come in to find that a photo frame had fallen off her nightstand. She'd be washing her hands in the bathroom, and in the mirror, she'd catch the shadow of someone slipping from the hallway toward the bedroom. The bathroom mirror faced the open doorway, so you could see the hallway reflected in it. We chalked it all up to just your imagination. I'd tease her, saying it was the house spirit testing the new owner. But the weirdest part? The bedroom was always freezing cold. You could have put a heater in there and it wouldn't have made a difference. The cold was so deep, it made the bed, the walls, everything, feel damp. One night, we stayed up late again, and she decided there was no point going back to her parents. It was already late, tomorrow was Sunday, no work, and a repair guy was coming in the morning. She asked me to sleep over, and I gladly agreed. But sleeping in the bedroom was impossible because of the cold, so luckily there was a fold-out couch in the living room. We made up the bed, left the hallway light on, its light cast a glow on the wall near the couch, lay down, and started chatting about life and everything else. We'd just fallen silent and were about to drift off to sleep when we suddenly heard a sharp sound from the kitchen. Like someone had flung open a cabinet door and slammed it shut. We looked at each other. I got up to check, maybe something had fallen. Side note. When weird stuff happens and I'm not alone, I'm always the one who goes to investigate. Like I'm trying to look fearless and keep others calm. So, I went into the kitchen, everything was in its place. I went back, we calmed down, lay back down. Then another sound came from the bathroom, about a minute later. It sounded like a shelf had fallen and everything on it had crashed to the floor. My friend was starting to panic, but still holding it together. I got up again, opened the bathroom door, nothing was out of place. We couldn't sleep. We lay there whispering possible explanations to each other. I suggested we just go to my place, it was so close. She waved it off, saying it was probably just her imagination or noisy neighbors. Then came the third sound. This time, from the bedroom. Someone took 2 steps and jumped onto the bed. This time, I didn't get up to check. We both froze, holding completely still, listening. A few seconds later, that someone got off the bed, and we heard footsteps. To enter the living room from the bedroom, you'd have to step into the hallway and then turn left. We stared at the doorway. From the sound of it, whatever it was had already reached the hallway and was now standing right at the door. If it just leaned a little forward, we'd see it. No shadows, no movement. But the footsteps had stopped just around the corner. We were too scared to even breathe. I had been staring at the door the entire time and hadn't noticed that my friend was staring at me, eyes wide, terrified. When I looked at her, she whispered, without blinking, in a trembling voice. "He knows your name." Personally, I hadn't heard anything. Just the footsteps. I looked back at the door, but she suddenly grabbed my wrist, so hard it hurt, and I looked at her again, like, "What are you doing?" Her hands were ice cold, which scared me even more. Again, she whispered, as if trying to convince me. "He knows your name." "Who?" I asked. "The one at the door. He said your name." I was about to get up and turn on the light. But she squeezed my arm even tighter and, in a whisper, still frozen in fear, she began muttering over and over. "Don't. Please don't. I'm begging you. Please don't move. Just stay still." I interrupted her and spoke out loud. "Enough already. Let go of my hand, I'm turning on the light." I stood up and flipped the switch, trying to look calm. But my shoulders and knees were locked up with fiery pain from the fear. I walked into the hallway, of course, no one was there. Went into the bedroom and quickly turned on the light before I could change my mind. Also empty. Turned off the light, shut the door, came back to the living room. My friend was now sitting with her knees pulled to her chest, glancing between me and the door, quietly crying. "There's no one there. Get up. Let's go to my place. Don't you get it? He called your name. Don't be ridiculous. Your fear is making your imagination run wild. Get up, get dressed. Let's go." My hands and legs were shaking so badly that I fell a few times while trying to pull on my pants. At 3 a.m., we turned everything off, locked the door, and quickly walked over to my place. My mom woke up when we came in. She came out and asked what was going on. She thought I was staying over at my friend's. Why were we out walking around at that hour? I was going to say there had been a power outage, but my friend suddenly started babbling hysterically. "There's a ghost in my apartment. He said her name. He's going to kill her. He came for her, I know it. They say if a ghost calls your name, it means he wants to take you. I know what I heard. Don't look at me like that, I heard it. Can you just shut up and calm down?" I snapped. My mom stared at us in disbelief, and then got angry. "You two have watched too many of those stupid horror movies. Now you're disturbing everyone else's peace. Go to bed already." As I said before, my whole family are skeptics. They have a logical explanation for everything. And the biggest skeptic of all is my mom. Trying to convince her otherwise would only make her more upset. In the morning, my friend calmed down a bit and said that whatever it was, she wasn't planning on selling the apartment. She said she needed to figure it out. She had decided that this thing had come for me, so she was going to fight for me. I even laughed at how brave she was. But sadly, that bravery didn't last long. She called the handyman and postponed the bathroom repairs. We had breakfast and sat down for some tea. We decided not to talk about the strange events for now. My mom was in the living room. We were chatting about silly things to distract ourselves. Then my mom came in and asked, "Who was calling you?" "Calling me? No one. We're just sitting here and..." "No, someone called for you. Wait a second." She walked to the door, and I followed her. She looked through the peephole and opened the door. No one was there. "Ugh, you've got me all worked up with your scary stories," she said, then fell silent for a moment and added, "You seriously didn't hear that?" "Nope." "Mom, stop it." I returned to the kitchen, where my friend was staring at me with eyes like saucers. I sat back down in my chair, and Mom followed me into the kitchen. "Maybe it was the neighbor calling you and then left?" But, the voice sounded male. "Mom, we didn't hear anything. You probably just..." I didn't even finish my sentence when suddenly, right next to me, or rather, directly into my ear, someone rasped out my name in a low, drawn-out whisper. It wasn't just me. I didn't imagine it. My friend screamed. My mom shook like she had been electrocuted. My friend backed away toward the door, while my mom kept switching between reading a prayer aloud and asking, "What was that? What just happened?" Then she'd start praying again, then asking again. Then silence. Absolute silence. We all sat down and just stared at one another. They both looked at me, waiting for me to explain something. But I didn't know what to say. After a long pause, my mom finally asked, "And how long has this been going on?" "My whole life. Every time, it's different." She didn't say another word after that. Her hands and lips were trembling. I tried to explain, to tell her more, but she wasn't really hearing me anymore. I won't lie, after that incident, I never heard the voice again. And no one else did either. My friend didn't sell the apartment, she just locked it up for a long time and didn't go back. She finally returned a few months later, with her new boyfriend. She never told him why she hadn't opened that door in so long, and there was no need to. She says there haven't been any strange sounds, no footsteps, no horrors since then. She says she doesn't even know what to think about it anymore. That it seems like the only time in her life she ever encountered something truly supernatural. And now, years later, when the fear has faded, it all seems like a pretty cool story to her, but a little frustrating too, because she can't tell anyone about it. They just laugh at her. The darkness that's dangerous. So, let me start by saying this story is completely real. It might not seem scary to some of you, but I swear, every bit of it is true. A bit of background first. I live in a cozy little house in a small village. About 200 meters from the house there's a river, and on the other side, what you could call a swamp, though not quite. It's more like soggy ground, not full-on marshland. 2 nearby houses are abandoned, and the rest are occupied by elderly people. I was born here, and I've lived here for 16 years. Now, to the story. Since childhood, I've had a fear of the dark. But not just any dark, the darkness in my house. I couldn't sleep without a light on. Going outside at night? Not a chance. Seems like a normal, irrational fear, right? But here's the thing, this only happens at home. Sleeping over at my grandma's or at friends' places? No problem. Exploring the ruins of the old clubhouse, walking to night discos? I'm fine. But the second I walk into my house, it starts, I'm shaking, overcome by a strange, intense panic. I can't explain it. Maybe it's the layout of the house, maybe the abandoned neighbors. I don't know. But that's not the worst part. It started for the first time when I was about 8 years old. It was either New Year's Eve or just before Christmas, I don't remember exactly. I just remember the big tree covered in glowing garlands. I was sitting and drawing something. The lights in the room were off, but the tree's glow was bright enough. Suddenly, something invisible touched my hand. I'll never forget the feeling. It was a hand, much larger than mine, and wrinkled, like it belonged to an old person. And it was cool to the touch. Not cold, cool, like a breeze from the basement. At the time, I convinced myself it must have been Santa Claus. But how wrong I was. Nothing supernatural happened again for a long time. Until recently. About a year ago, it started again. At first, it was just a weird feeling, like someone was watching me at night. Then the feeling started showing up during the day. And then it escalated. One night, I was lying in bed, eyes closed, just thinking about the day. I do this often. Suddenly, I realized I couldn't feel my body, like I had become weightless. Strangely, I didn't panic. But then I heard it, a disgusting male laugh, right next to me. I jumped up, ran to my family, asking if anyone else heard it. Nothing. The TV was barely on, no one was being loud. Was I losing my mind? A while later, it happened again, this time, the voice whispered. You will be mine. What is happening to me? Is this just my imagination? A mental illness? Or something else? Not long ago, I woke up in the middle of the night and realized I couldn't move. I felt someone leaning over me. I could feel their heavy, icy breath on my face. I clung to the blanket, eyes shut tight, telling myself it couldn't be real. That it was just a dream. But, God, I was so terrified. Lately, I feel like there's always someone right behind me. When I walk through the house, I hear faint footsteps following me. At night, when I get up for water or go to the bathroom, I hear the floorboards creaking behind me. I'm genuinely afraid. Has anyone else experienced anything like this? But this next story might just change how you walk home at night. Brace yourself, things are about to get a lot darker. Just like last time. Just like last time. This story was told by an electrician at work. Not the kind of guy known for making stuff up. I'm just passing it along the way I heard it. Told in the first person. It happened about a year ago. From the bus stop to my house, you have to walk through a park. There are no streetlights there, and drunk groups often hang around. The alternative route goes past some garages, also dark, also deserted, and it adds another 10 minutes to the walk. So, I'm hurrying home, and just before the park I catch up with an acquaintance, Tatiana. My son and her daughter go to the same class. We get to chatting about school stuff, and I don't notice when a group of guys in tracksuits comes up behind us. I can't say exactly how many. Someone hit me in the back of the head with something heavy, and they started yelling at Tatiana, "Hand over your money and phone." I tried to stand up, and got kicked in the stomach for my trouble. My ears were ringing, my vision was swimming. Now, I can't swear what I heard wasn't just a result of the blow to my head, but still. I hear a voice, it sounds like Tatiana, but the voice is off. Raspy and shaky, like the hyena from the Jungle Book cartoon. And I remember exactly what she said. "What shall we do to them?" Then another voice replies, low, deep, humming. "We'll take out their eyes." And then the first voice again, trembling with excitement. "Just like last time. Just like last time." I swear, despite everything, a cold sweat broke out all over me when I heard that. After that, it's all a blur. I didn't come back to my senses until we were at my apartment building. Somehow, Tatiana had helped me get there. She called my wife and an ambulance. But she really didn't want to call the police. Maybe for good reason. The cops tried hard to talk me out of filing a report, saying we didn't see the attackers clearly, and nothing was actually stolen, blah blah blah. In the end, I had a concussion. To this day, I don't know if I really heard those voices, or if they were just from the head trauma. But here's what bothers me. A couple of times after the incident, Tatiana cornered my wife and kept asking what exactly I'd said about that night. And then, 2 weeks later, my son casually mentioned that Tatiana had transferred her daughter to a different school. They were moving. I still don't know what really happened that night. I want to ask Tatiana. But what if she answers, in one of those voices? You know that uneasy feeling when something just isn't right? When the night is too still, and the silence is broken by a voice that shouldn't be there? Well, imagine hearing a little girl counting beneath your window, just after midnight. And what follows, is something you'll never forget. It was the middle of summer. I was staying at my grandmother's. Ever since I was a child, I loved visiting her and spending the night. There was something about her home, a strange kind of atmosphere, but one that made me feel safe and cozy. It became a tradition for me to spend every summer there. One evening, I came back from being out all day, completely exhausted. I grabbed a bite to eat, took a quick shower, and spent maybe 2 hours chatting with Grandma before going to bed. Because the summer was unbearably hot, I cracked the window open before lying down. I had just started to drift off to sleep when I heard a long, drawn-out howl from a dog. It went on, not quite a cry of pain, not quite of hunger, something in between. Then I heard a voice. It sounded like it belonged to a little girl, maybe around 6 years old. I glanced at the clock, 12:03 a.m., weird, I thought. I tried to blame it on being overtired, but no, then I heard counting. That same little girl was whispering, counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's when I got seriously scared. I walked toward the window, and, God help me, I realized the voice was coming from directly beneath it. Now, my grandma's apartment is on the first floor, so it wasn't that strange for a kid to be outside. But the blinds were down, so I gently lifted a corner to peek through. That's when the shivers hit me. The swing set just outside was moving back and forth wildly, as if someone were swinging full force. But there was no one on it. And then, again, the girl's voice, whispering the count, 1 to 10. I ran back to bed and pulled the blanket over my head, desperately trying to fall asleep. But it wasn't over yet. A car pulled into the courtyard. Strangely, I didn't hear any doors open. Then I heard a deep male voice, too garbled to understand. And then the little girl cried out. Daddy! Daddy's home. Next came a sound. Like a chainsaw starting up. The last thing I remember was the girl's scream, long, filled with terror. Daddy, no. And then, counting. Again. I started praying, every prayer I could remember. In the morning, I woke up with a strange, heavy feeling. I remembered everything from the night before, but didn't tell anyone. I didn't think anyone would believe me anyway. It never happened again. But the question still haunts me. What on earth was that? They say cemeteries are peaceful, but what if some graves whisper back? What if one of them warns you about your own future? A cemetery draws you in by its very nature. It's a place where each of us will eventually find our resting place, sooner or later. Everyone has their own feelings about such places. You could reflect on it endlessly. I used to be absolutely terrified of cemeteries. Not because of the graves or the crosses. It was the voices. Even now, when I go to a cemetery, I still hear them, quiet whispers coming from every direction. Some beg for something, others just mumble random, disconnected phrases. All the voices overlap, creating a strange, overwhelming cacophony that makes it nearly impossible to make out anything clearly. But if I turn my head toward one of the voices, the others go silent. It's always been like that. Over time, I just got used to it and stopped being afraid. But the story I'm about to tell happened when I was 11. Back then, even the word cemetery made me shiver. My palms would go sweaty with dread. It was summer. My parents and I had traveled to my hometown, Volgograd, to visit relatives. My grandmother decided to visit the graves of her parents, and my mother agreed. And of course, she insisted on taking me with them. There was no point in arguing with my mom, she only ever heard herself. And I certainly wasn't about to explain my issues with cemeteries. So there we were, walking along the quiet paths between the graves. It was a sunny day, but almost no visitors. That made it worse for me. People create noise, and noise helps muffle the whispers. The voices started up again, all around. My head began to spin. I shut my eyes, I was too scared of actually seeing something. Luckily, Grandma held my hand the whole way. I stumbled a little but kept walking behind her. I have no idea how long we walked. It felt endless. And then, just ahead and a little to the left, I heard a voice. It didn't ask. It demanded. Stop. Look at me. I froze. Something deep inside said I had to look. But I really didn't want to open my eyes. Grandma had stopped too, still chatting with my mom, not noticing I had paused. Then the voice came again, more insistent. "Look at me. You're headed for the same fate. Don't." A chill ran from the top of my head to the tips of my toes. Goosebumps rose all over my body. Slowly, I turned toward the voice, and opened my eyes. In front of me stood a black marble headstone. A young flight attendant smiled back at me from the photo. She wore her airline hat, curly hair peeked out from underneath. I looked at the dates. She had died at 25. Back then, I thought, well, at least she wasn't that young, she had some time. Now I know, 25 is nothing. She barely had the chance to live. But in that moment, I was frozen. Completely stunned. You see, I wanted to be a flight attendant. I was obsessed with the idea. My dad tried to talk me out of it, said I wasn't tall enough, said I needed languages. So I trained hard, hung from bars, played basketball, hoping to grow taller. I started learning French at school. I taught myself English too. I was stubborn, I didn't let go of dreams easily. And then, just like that, I let go. That final sentence from the voice broke something inside me. The desire vanished. I never wanted to be a flight attendant again. The rest of the visit passed in a blur. The voices faded into the background. But her words, the voice from the grave, played over and over in my mind. When I got home, I was quiet. Thoughtful. No more excited chatter about airplanes or flight school. My family, especially Dad, couldn't figure out what happened. He asked 100 questions. I said nothing. To this day, my father still doesn't know the real reason I gave up my dream of the skies. He thinks I got lazy or bored. But I know what truly happened. That day in the cemetery changed everything I believed about life and death. And I finally stopped fearing spirits so much. Because sometimes, they help. Sometimes, they warn us. Years later, when I studied astrology, I built my own natal chart. And without going into too much detail, let's just say, the stars showed a premature and instant death, in an explosion, in fire. So maybe, just maybe, that voice saved me. Maybe I avoided my fate when I gave up that dream. Or, maybe it's still ahead of me. What if the voice in your head isn't your imagination, but someone who once lived? What if that voice saves your life, again and again? Let me tell you a story passed down from a grandmother to her granddaughter. A story about war, survival, and the voice that never let her down. Today, I want to tell you a story from my grandmother, Klavdia Afanasyevna. Yes, I was named after her. Even as a child, I listened to this story as if under a spell. I'll tell it from her perspective, it just feels more natural that way. This happened right after the war ended. I was still very young, only about 15 years old. Back in 1942, the Germans had taken us to Germany as forced labor. Once we were freed, we began the long journey home, back to our village. It was a hard trip. Sometimes we walked, sometimes someone would give us a lift. There were a lot of us traveling together. That day, my mother found me a spot on an old man's cart. I was completely exhausted, worn out. The cart was piled high with bags and junk. I climbed on top of a bundle, sat down, and fell asleep. We hadn't had proper sleep in days. But I must have slipped. I fell off the cart and hit my head hard on the ground, hard enough to knock me unconscious. Everyone panicked, rushed to help. That's what my mother told me later. They barely managed to revive me. My head was bleeding badly, they stopped it, wrapped me up, and we were on the road again. I remember walking afterward, my head pounding, nauseated, but I had to keep going. I was drained. Then, on the second day of this misery, I heard a voice. A man's voice. Claudia, I'm your grandfather. You don't know me, but I want to help. You're about to pass a village, don't stop there. Even if it's dark, don't stay overnight. If you do, they'll kill you all and steal your things and documents. I was confused. Who was speaking to me? I told my mother. She just shook her head, probably thinking I was delirious from the head injury. She even started to cry. But the voice didn't stop. It kept warning me, insisting we pass the village. Soon after, as night fell, we came to that exact village. Another family traveling with us, just 2 people, asked to spend the night in one of the homes. My mother wanted to do the same. But I started crying and begged her not to. Eventually, she gave in. We went into the forest instead, built a makeshift shelter, and spent the night there. The next morning, we returned to the village looking for food. And found out that the family who stayed behind, along with the homeowners, had all been murdered. Their bodies dumped on the road. Their things and papers, gone. That's when I knew. The voice was telling the truth. I started asking my mother about my grandfather. She said he died long before the war and couldn't possibly be talking to me. But I knew better. And from that moment on, he kept guiding me. Don't go that way, bandits are waiting. Don't drink from that well, it's cholera contaminated. Don't get on that train, there's a typhus outbreak. Somehow, he always knew. Eventually, we reached our home region, barely, and there, something terrifying happened. We spent the night in an old, bombed-out stable. One section still had a roof, so all of us settled there, anything to keep dry. That night, I was asleep when my grandfather's voice woke me up again. Get up. Wake the others. Run into the field, now, or you'll all die. I jumped up and started screaming, telling everyone to run. Some people listened. Others cursed me out, told me to shut up. At first, nothing happened. We stood in the rain, waiting. Half an hour passed. We were about to go back when, suddenly, the roof collapsed. It must have been soaked through with rain. Those who stayed behind were crushed or badly injured. Those of us who ran, were safe. Everyone thanked me, especially those whose children had survived. Eventually, we made it home, or at least, to the place where our home used to be. The Germans had burned it down. But we rebuilt. We started a new life. And my grandfather kept helping me, guiding me through the years. When I was 18, I met the man who would become my husband. We dated, then got married. One night, my grandfather's voice came again. Go to church. Secretly. Get married before God, it'll protect you. Times are dangerous. But this will keep you safe and bring happiness. So we did just that. We got secretly married in church, away from the authorities. After that, I never heard my grandfather's voice again. He left me. Maybe he passed me on to my husband. Because I truly did marry a good man. He loved me deeply. And we lived a long and happy life, just as my grandfather promised. She survived cancer. Gave birth to twins. Was full of life and positivity. But one morning, she called to say goodbye, because her 10 years were up. What happened in that dark hospital room? The story of my hospital roommate in the maternity ward. I met her in the ICU after a C-section. She had twins, a girl and a boy, born at 7 months, and I had my firstborn, a son. She was a woman over 35. Very positive about everything, she calmed me down, saying, pain is nothing. We must all endure it for our children. We are strong women. Just like us, our children were in the neonatal ICU, her premature babies in incubators, looking like tiny dolls. My baby, although strong, was on N4. I won't describe all the hardships of the hospital. My roommate was so positive that her energy and courage could fill 100 people. Naturally, we talked a lot, sharing stories about ourselves and our families, typical women's chatter. Now to the story. A few years ago, she was diagnosed with a malignant tumor. Thus began the ordeal with doctors, clinics, treatments. Round after round of chemotherapy. The battle was full and merciless. It was followed by radiation therapy. Exhausted by pain and weakness, lying in the radiotherapy ward, she cried out, "Leave me alone, death." And she was struck with such despair as she had never known. It made things even harder and more painful. Left alone in complete darkness, no longer feeling the pain of her body, her mind kept asking, "Why me? What did I do to deserve this?" It was so dark and quiet around her that she had never known such darkness or silence before. In that pitch-black, silent void, a wave of fear suddenly came over her. A fear so powerful it crushed her. And her thoughts whispered, "This is death. I'm gone." That fear quickly turned into a deep loneliness, which became an aching separation from her home, her city, her loved ones. She missed them desperately. She craved her life. In that strange feeling of loneliness and longing for her familiar world, the darkness began to press on her, as if it was shrinking her into something very small, while it stayed vast and suffocating. In that absolute darkness, voices started to speak, but she couldn't make out the words. After long muttering, she clearly heard. "How much more do you want?" "Me?" she asked in surprise, realizing she could speak to the voices. "You," a rough voice replied. She was so terrified that, in pain, as if the answer was squeezed out of her, she said, 10 years. A flash of bright, boundless light blinded her. Circles danced before her eyes. Then the pain returned to her body. When the circles faded, she was back in the hospital room. That room now seemed so beautiful to her that tears rolled down her cheeks. Life felt so wonderful, every little thing around her seemed incredibly vivid. Life went on. She beat cancer. Got a second university degree and became a master swimmer. A few years later, she was able to get pregnant with twins. Doctors told her not to, but she didn't give up. And now, sitting in the maternity ward, she had no right to complain about her physical condition. She had 2 children. We were discharged from the hospital almost at the same time, even though her babies were premature. At first, we just called each other. Then we became friends, visited each other's homes. Our husbands got along, too. We became truly close friends. Our children went to the same kindergarten. Everything was perfect, until one morning, everything ended. On the phone, there was no cheer in her voice like before. She said we had to meet urgently to say goodbye, because her 10 years were up. She didn't want to fight anymore. No more chemo. She believed there was no point, she had been given 10 years. 10 years of happiness. My pleading that she was needed, by her children, by us, didn't stop her. She left us. Suicide. I don't understand, and I don't want to. Why did she believe that voice so much? The one that told her she had 10 years? Maybe it was just her mind playing tricks in that dark hospital room. And why didn't someone so full of life, so cheerful and strong, have the strength to fight again? That went against everything she stood for. If these stories moved you, inspired you, or simply made you feel something, leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more real stories that deserve to be heard. There are so many voices out there, let's keep listening. Thank you for being here with us.